About this time last year, I wrote an article called The Law of Unintended Consequences, in which I spoke about how one seemingly positive action can result in a negative outcome. I revisited the subject in May this year with an article called Construction's Lack of Consequences. The same notion was also the inspiration for a piece I wrote just a few weeks ago called Right Hand versus Left Hand. Each time I've written about this, my words have been greeted with widespread and almost universal recognition. Yes, people say, obviously, if you raise landfill tax, some people will just fly tip their waste illegally. Or if you demand industry veterans prove they're capable of doing the job they've been doing for the past 30 years, some of them are going to tell you where you can poke your MVQs. Sadly, as is so often the case, factors that seem patently obvious to those on the ground are considerably less obvious to those in loftier positions within the UK demolition and construction industry. And few organisations are quite as lofty and far removed from the muck and bullets of the demolition and construction trenches as the Construction Industry Training Board, or the CITB as it's known, affectionately or otherwise. Want to know just how out of touch the CITB is? In June this year, the CITB Chief Executive Tim Balcon went on the record to say this is a boom time for the industry. His words came just as it was announced that the UK construction industry had fallen for the 6 months in succession. Such disconnection from reality is like a TV weatherman standing in the pissing rain and assuring you that the weather's lovely. The CITB exists, let us not forget, because the industry allows it to do so. Every 3 years, the CITB is required to throw itself on the mercy of the fee-paying construction industry and to be granted permission to do whatever the hell it does for another 36 months. Having granted it yet another stay of execution, the industry then funds the CITB through its much maligned levy system. Now, in case you've been living under a rock, the CITB levy is used to support the construction industry to have a skilled, competent, and inclusive workforce now and in the future. According to the CITB website, which I checked just this morning, it is dedicated to ensuring the construction workforce has the right skills for now and the future, based around our three strategic priorities: careers, standards, and qualifications, training and development. The CITB says it uses the levy to support training development through grants and funding, promote the construction industry as a great career choice, and offer high quality apprenticeships, identify skills needs across the construction industry, and develop occupational standards and qualifications. In short, the CITB's levy is designed to support the British construction industry to develop the skilled workforce it needs. A noble aim, I think you'll all agree. Equally noble was the ambition laid out recently by the chief executive to put employers in the driving seat to ensure that its approach is co-owned and transparent. Sadly, however, that transparency appears to have been great in theory, not quite so good in practice, because seemingly without warning, the CITB has announced it's slashing funding for construction training by 30%. Now, weirdly, that wasn't flagged during the 2025 consensus back in May. That massive cut in funding was not mentioned during the CITB conference in July. There was no mention of it on the CITB social media channels. And at the time of writing, there is no mention whatsoever about it on the CITB website either. Beyond the lack of transparency and beyond the lack of forewarning, what is the likely outcome of this cut to funding? Do they expect the construction industry to tighten its belt and cut costs to continue funding this vital training? Do they think the industry will suddenly discover the joys of self-sufficiency and collectively plug the gap left by their decision? They may believe both of those things to be true, but here's how I see this playing out based on more than 35 years of experience in and around this sector. That cut in funding will result in a cut in training. When times are hard, and they're hard for many at the moment, demolition and construction companies start to make cuts. They cut advertising and marketing budgets. They replace their equipment less frequently. They start to stretch out projects to keep the wheels turning and to keep key workers employed. If that fails to stem the tide, they cut the workforce. And at some time between cutting advertising and laying off staff, they cut training. All the time. This is the ultimate example of a short-term solution having a long-term effect. Cutting training today will have a potentially negative impact on safety today and tomorrow. Cutting training today means an erosion of any company's competitive advantage that they might have established. And cutting training today means a widening of the gap between the skills we have now and the skills we will need in the future. And let's not forget the timing of this inexplicable CITB decision. We're in the midst of a severe and worsening skill shortage. The CITB itself has highlighted that we're going to need another 250,000 construction workers in the next few years. And it's less than a year after CSCS did away with grandfather rights, sending many of the sector's most experienced and most valuable workers scurrying for the industry exit. The impact of the CSCS decision was far reaching. In addition to pushing many key workers into premature retirement, it also robbed the sector of many of the mentors vital in helping the next generation of workers into the business. Trust me, I'm saying this on the record right now. The CITB decision to cut funding will be a whole lot worse.